Thank you guys very much for having me. This is kind of, it's a pretty, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know, well, let's ask first a few questions. One is, does anyone have currently right now an idea or a passion that they're passionate about, but they haven't actually done anything with it? A show of hands. Like, is there anything that you're actually passionate about something, you just haven't done anything with it? That's the first one. The second one is, how many of you like sandwiches? I'm just kind of curious what my crowd is, because if you're a salad person, we may have some issues. Nothing against the salad, but I may have some issues. So yes, I'm Anthony Biggie Bencomo, and I'm going to be talking about enjoying the creative journey. So, and I'll tell a little bit about me, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about how everything kind of stitches together from me starting my clothing brand to what has actually happened, of course, in the last 13 years of my life. So I'm not gonna lie, like, I had a little bit of imposter syndrome. I have a lot of imposter syndrome from doing this. I've had my brand now for 11 years, and this is one of those things where regardless, when people ask me to speak, even though I have a passion and a love for what I do, you're always gonna have some imposter syndrome. But one of the big things I would say is you lean into the fear and you kind of go into it. And at the same time, everyone's perspective is a valued perspective. And I think that's kind of one of the big things. Even though I may not be a designer, I'm a creative and a visualizer, and that's how I've created my brand. So when you look at thread, yes, I am an obvious choice. My brand is called Deli Fresh Threads. But obviously, I will say that when I go back and look, and when I sat down and I actually met, Vic brought it up to me, like, we literally just randomness, we met at a Honda service center and he brought it up to me. And from the time he told me, it was in my head of like, what is thread? Like, you know, I know the word thread, whatever, but I kind of wanted to, the second part is really the part that I noticed for me has been the valuable part. And that is like how everything has been kind of, there's a consistent thread along my journey since what I've been doing. So obviously, let's start from the beginning. I know it's a horrible picture, and you'll understand why, because it's from the 90s. So to give you a little bit of background of who I am, this isn't my first forte in clothing brands or knowing anything like that. When I was a senior at UCF, I studied marketing, and I had this idea. Wrestling was huge, NWO, everyone loved all that stuff. Well, I wanted a UCF shirt. I really wanted it bad. I'm like one of those diehards. Like, I'll show you how diehard I am. I have a UCF tattoo to give you an idea of my diehard, okay? So I'm so diehard, I had this idea. Went to everyone, kept asking everybody, went to all the different places that sold UCF clothing and said, hey, I got this awesome idea. All I want is like 5 shirts for me and my friends to wear for free based on this idea. Here's the graphic. And everyone said no to me. And so one of my friends said to me, my roommate at the time, he's like, Biggie, why don't you just make your own version of it? So I actually went and did the whole process legally through collegiate licensing, found a printer and made the shirt. Created my own clothing brand way before the perfect season. My perfect season was winless perfect season, okay? To give you an idea of timing of when it was in 98. So it's like, that's why it looks so pixelated. But I came up with this idea, and then we started a brand and went from there. And I basically did it for 5 years. I loved it. I loved everything about it. It was like brand right when the internet websites were even brand new. So it was like, that's how new it was. But I would sell, and I would like I had commissary and I had all this stuff. It was phenomenal, but I had a passion for it. I enjoyed it. I loved seeing people wear my stuff. And that was something that I was drawn to. It was like, to me, I thought it was like a t-shirt. Like, who doesn't wear a t-shirt? We live in Florida. Everyone wears a t-shirt. I love it. So remember that. Then I did it for 5 years, because the one thing I learned when you're doing a niche brand or something very specific to something is, you know, especially when it comes to college sports, if your team sucks, no one buys. That's pretty much like, that's just write it down. If you're not, especially UCF, like I was ahead of the curve. So when I closed, we were 3-9, and the next year when I officially closed, we went winless that year. So, and I finished, but I still had this love and desire. I basically graduated UCF, got a corporate job. And when I got the corporate job, I was adulting and I was doing everything, but I studied marketing at UCF. When you try to do marketing at UCF at the time in the late 90s, it meant you were a salesperson. And I didn't want to do sales. I wanted to do marketing. I had all these ideas and I had all this passion, but I lived in the cube life because I was adulting and I had a family. I was married, I got married, and I had a beautiful wife. I have, as you can see, a 16-year-old daughter here. But basically, I was married. And I told my wife, I was like, listen, every day that I don't do something creative, I'm dying inside. I need to do something. And so my wife was like, what do you want to do? What is it that you want to do? And I basically was thinking, I'm like, what am I passionate about? What's my purpose? She then asked me the question that sometimes people ask you, which is like, if you won the lottery, what would you do? And I was like, well, and of course at the same time, she's like, I don't want to go bankrupt, Anthony. And so then I was like, okay, I'm like, I guess I love doing clothes. I love sandwiches. Like that's like always been my obsession, has been sandwiches. And so I talked to a person, one of my coworkers, and I was like telling one of my coworkers that I was like in this dilemma. It was I was probably about, I don't know, maybe 9 years into my corporate job. And when I was talking with him, of course, at that time, I already knew about Johnny Cupcakes and all of that. But he basically gave me a book, and it's called Gary Vaynerchuk's Crush It. It's an older book, but it was about being passionate and being an expert on something. And I was like, well, I love sandwiches, and I already had a clothing brand, and I love the idea of doing a sandwich themed clothing brand due to the fact that there's 2 networks that do food. No one is in my niche. And I would basically, all I would do is dedicate my time to what I call the king of meals, the sandwich, because I love the sandwich. Like it literally is the king of meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert. Try to challenge me. I will tell you, we could probably still make it into a sandwich. This is me with obviously a sandwich. Ironically, based on my thread, this is actually my sandwich. It's called the Biggie Banh Mi. It's available at Gnarly Barley. It's my creation. And it's something that kind of led to because of my brand. I came up with the idea of Deli Fresh Threads. I know, kind of a generic name, but it took me forever to figure out what it was, and this just made sense. Every time you go to a deli, it freaking says Deli Fresh. So I got obsessed with Deli Fresh Threads. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to create a brand that showed my love for sandwiches. And that's kind of the first stitch of where it starts kind of going. I wanted something where I wanted high quality merchandise, just like I would expect in a high quality sandwich. I wanted people to experience what it was like to get a lunch. Basically, I tell people getting a package from me is like getting your mom packing you a lunch / your favorite sandwich shop. Because I literally put these little extra details, and the reason I could do this is because obviously I have a passion and a love for it. This isn't a money grab for me. Yes, I know it's a business, but this is something that I am fully passionate about. That's why I do handwritten notes, and they're not actually just printed. And I do all these little things because these are the little details that I want every single person to understand my love. And that's how it kind of started. Okay, like my whole thread started with this, my enthusiasm, my excitement. I started with this, and I just kind of started developing from there. For 11 years, I've been doing this. This is kind of an idea of some of my brand. My designs kind of vary from everything. Everything from kind of like a sports theme. I do a little thing called Sandwich City Theory, where I basically think like sandwiches and cities combined together, sandwich together, create a brand. I have some things that are just positive messages, or just things that I think of sauces, like Sauce Queen, Condiment King. Anything that has to do with my brand, I think of it as sandwich related. I've incorporated it in the last 11 years. This is something that it's just been like, to me, basically, it's been like the lightning rod, because what happens is me doing this starts creating opportunity. Opportunities like people then start asking you questions like, hey, Biggie, you own a sandwich shop, right? No, I own a sandwich clothing brand. Oh yeah? Well, where do you go get a sandwich at? Well, I go to this place. And I started getting so many people asking me about it that I came up with the idea. I was like, you know something? Like, I'm all about building community and creating this like synergy with everybody. So I basically created something called Sandwich Eat Up. So it's a meetup where we all go eat sandwiches, and we basically supported a small business. I did it before COVID. I did it for about 5-6 years. I did over 60 of them. And for me, what I did was every month I would pick a place that needed help, that I thought was a good place. Basically, it was kind of like, if I told you we're eating here, you know it's good. And I would take you there, and we would eat sandwiches, and we would support another small business. So I basically knew that was something that was so key for me, that even though I was a small business, these are other small businesses that like needed help. So we would go and we would do this. This kind of then starts leading to other things. Things like after my 60th one, I was like, oh, I've always wanted to do a sandwich eating tour. I would love to do one on National Sandwich Day. And so I did one on National Sandwich Day in the Milk District. This right here is my friend Doug over there. He actually gave me a proclamation from the mayor for making November 3rd National Sandwich Day. Those are all like the little things. Like these aren't things that I like looked into wanting to like goal-wise to make happen. These are things that start developing and kind of building, almost kind of like as you're building a sandwich, like they kind of like the layers start building, the flavors, the umami, all that goodness, right? Starts happening. I start getting asked to do presentations because people are like, hey, your sandwich eat-up events are fun. Can you talk a little bit more about these sandwich eat-up events? And I was like, sure, I'd love to. I'm like, I'd love to go to Florida BlogCon and talk about it with you. Because my whole thing is, I believe that you should do what you're passionate about. You should be able to do things. And when it's something so like in my brand, I really want people, I just want to build that community and that love. Enjoying the ride. I know we're in a place, I'm in a very interesting place in my life because of the fact that I'm older, I'm 48. So, and obviously I know now, age is a number, but to give you an idea, I know that for many's, there's a whole concept of the goal. Yes, you should have goals. Have goals for when you create these projects, your passions, things that you love. But at the same time, I strongly encourage, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face, and hell, DM me and I'll remind you, because I tell my own friends that are currently blowing up with their brands, I tell them, make sure you enjoy the ride. Make sure you take a moment to see where you've come and how far you've come. Because for me, it can be very disheartening when you're watching your brand. I've been doing this for 11 years. I've obviously not blown up. Half of you probably don't even know who I was till today. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. But what I'm saying is, it's something that I understand that in my journey, I'm gaining all these other perspectives and all these other things and experiences that I would have not experienced it had I not actually got off my ass and done something about it. It's very easy to talk it. It's a lot harder to do it. So definitely, if you're gonna do it, enjoy the ride, have your goals, yes, but just don't fully focus on that destination. Take sure you take the time to turn back and look and go, man, look at all the cool things I've done. Because a lot of things will happen along the way that will later on, when you're feeling your shittiest, sorry for the language, you go back and if you kind of keep track, even if you do a note section on your phone of all the little wins, you can go back and remind yourself, hey, these are all the things I've accomplished. Keep going forward. This is me with the hustle. Obviously, I'm the only person in my brand. The only person that works besides me, I jokingly tell people, is my mascot, which is obviously a fictitious character, Biggie Bread, and occasionally my mom will fold shirts for me. But this is me. This is an act of love. I do this because I love it. Even when I grow big and massive, because I will, when this brand does blow up, it's still gonna be something like this. Because I just have a passion for it. And when people see those things, they appreciate it. They gravitate to it. It kind of builds that relationship with you because they're kind of like, oh, cool, I'm part of this cool, this cool thing. I mean, and half the time, my favorite thing to hear is people say, I don't want to open it because it looks so cool. Or during the holidays now, when people get upset that they actually didn't get a sandwich, it's actually just a shirt under their tree, which I think is kind of crazy, having something like, who would put a sandwich under a tree for like 2 weeks, right? And like, who does that? This is me selling at events. Basically, I figured out that when you're doing events, like, yes, the outcome, because they're expensive to do, the outcome and the main purpose of the events is obviously make money. However, you really got to change that perspective as well, because every person that you interact with is someone that could possibly be someone in your future, someone that you don't know who they could be or what it could lead to. So you kind of have to look at it as everything's a victory on this. Like, I know there's no such thing as moral victories on some of this, but when it comes to selling at events like this, and you're spending, especially me, full-time job, dad, I work a corporate job, it's exhausting. And I basically, when I do this on the weekends, my coworkers ask me sometimes, they're like, why the hell do you you do this, man? Like, why can't you just chill out and relax? And I'm like, because this feeds me, man. I get energized. I love the interaction. I love people talking to me about, is a hot dog a sandwich? Or where's your favorite place to go get food? Like, I love that stuff because I love building that community. Because for me, it's not just about the outcome. Yes, I want sales because obviously my brand, more sales to my brand means more products I get to come up with, more ideas I get to do. But at the end of the day, like I noticed that for me, when I started Deli Fresh Threads, I noticed that it started taking me on a course and I wasn't pigeonholed like this, where I'm like, I'm only a clothing brand, I'm only a clothing brand. I saw that it took me to different directions. It also showed me that I have a lot of people that actually I get to create a community with. It's funny, I always get it, like maybe every 4 or 5 events, I'll get a random person to go, hey, why are you taking a picture of that person? And I'm like, are they famous? And I'm like, and I go, no. I go, well, yeah, they're famous. They're famous to me because they're supporting my brand. And I'm like, and so I have thousands of pictures like this in my phone that I take every time someone goes, as long as they tell me yes, obviously. And I make sure it looks good, and sometimes I'll share it to them because I take some damn good pictures of them holding the bag. But this is just like, I built this community of people, and to see people come back wearing my stuff, coming back and wearing it. I mean, I got one guy, my dad tells me he's my biggest fan. I say, sorry, Dad, you're not. I'm like, actually, I know a guy that's got 25 of my shirts. So I'm like, he's actually my biggest fan. So, but this is like one of the things that I get the energy from when it comes to the outcome. So like, even though sometimes my friends do Instagram story stalk me and they watch, because obviously if I did a good event, what happens? You see a lot more people. If you don't see a lot of people, then people are like, oh, wasn't a great event, was it? And I was like, no, but I met a lot of people, but they could see it that way. And I kind of do it also because it does give me, this is also positive reinforcement for me, like, ooh, you really like me, or you like my brand. It's very nice. Saying yes to opportunities. You know, that's always a tough one when you have like a specific roadmap that you want to go to and you want to do. For me, I've always taken my brand as an option of this is where the conduit that's going to lead me to different things. And it's very hard sometimes to say yes, or sometimes you say yes too many times. So you got to obviously find that balance. For me, I basically found yes to the opportunity to people telling me to speak, wanting me to speak about my branding, or speaking, and I've had opportunities to be able to do everything from, Florida BlogCon. I've talked at Full Sail Live. I've gotten to do some stuff over at UCF on in their Blackstone, as well as also the alumni speakers. So I've been able to do a lot of different things to be able to speak about, where sometimes I may not feel like I'm an expert, but obviously other people think I'm an expert, and I am passionate about what it is that I love to do, and it's something that I obviously think is really the key. I think people see that I'm authentic, and I do have a love for this. I want every single person in this room to succeed. I kind of look at it that way. That is one of my Gallup traits. I'm positivity. I get more energy off of you guys succeeding and knowing that I could help you in some way, or that you're actually doing something. So for me, if I could share this, if I can give you just a glimpse to follow and get off your ass and actually do something that you love, man, like that's energy right there. It also kind of led me to want to go, hey, I now deal with all these brands. I now talk to all these people. I'm doing all these markets. There's like 100 vendors and I'm seeing all these people. So that kind of gave me then the idea, of like, hey, I should start a podcast. And I got told at first, like, why are you going to do a podcast? Is it going to be for Deli Fresh Threads? Is it going to help your brand? No, not really. Like, it's like, I guess I'll name drop Deli Fresh Threads. And obviously I know that everyone knows that I'm Biggie from Deli Fresh Threads, but I wanted to do a podcast where it's actually, I know the name says Lunch with Biggie. Obviously it's a thread, it continues on, but we actually don't talk about food that much. My first question is, what's your favorite sandwich? After that, I literally talk to small business owners and creatives. And the idea I do that for is because I want to speak with them, because I want to be able to help get information from them, because I'm inspired by them, and get information from them. But I also want to use them to, maybe if you're hearing it from someone else, it'll inspire you to want to do something else. And so then that's kind of what I got from when I started doing this. I've done over 141 episodes. I've gotten some great some great stuff from my guests. Some of them, which is one of my favorite, some of my favorites are like, ideas are like a muse. They come to you, and if you don't take it, they'll go somewhere else, which I don't know if you've ever noticed that. Like, you have an idea, and then all of a sudden somewhere you didn't do anything about it, and someone else does, and you're like, oh, I had that idea. Another one is, if you half-ass it, you're gonna get half-ass results. I mean, it's kind of interesting to hear different people's perspectives. You're gonna fail forward, fail quickly. You get all these different things. And of course, the more popular one, just do it. Just actually stop talking about it, do it. A lot of people will also say, so I've gained a lot of perspective from learning from these folks. A lot of times is because I'm actually very inspired by them, because this is actually their full-time job. And this is what they do for their businesses when I talk to them. And if I could help one person at least find another person to hear about them and get to know them, then it opens up opportunities. So that kind of, because of that, obviously, this is actually recorded. I recorded this at Pom Poms. And when I did this, obviously what happens, like I'm a food guy. So everyone like, oh, you're a food guy. I want to talk to food guy. So you start creating relationships. One of the relationships I became friends with was Amy Drew. She's from the Orlando Sentinel. She does a lot of the food articles. And so she asked me, she's like, hey, I'd love to do a podcast with you and talk about Orlando food. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, let's pump up and let's talk about other general food topics and be able to do that. It was something that, did I want to add another thing to my plate? Probably not. But I did it because I was like, hey, this is a great opportunity. This is something that will actually be able to help me be able to talk about other places with her. It shows other people that I'm not just the sandwich guy, that I do eat other foods other than sandwiches. So like, this is a great perspective to be able to do. And that's something that I kind of looked at it as saying yes to the opportunity allowed me to be able to do that. I definitely think when you're going, and I know I've said it numerous times because I want that to be the common thread. I want you to be able to, one, go after your goals and follow that passion that you have, but I also want you to be able to stop and actually celebrate the successes along the way. I will say that sometimes, like I've said, you kind of have those moments where you're like, man, trust me, I have numerous times in my 11 years, and I'm pretty sure you talk to anyone who's a business owner, you're like, why the hell am I in business? Like, I just wish, and then something will happen. The universe listens, and then you get some random person that will either message you or be like, man, I swear to God, that was like the coolest packaging I ever seen. Thank you so much. Or, hey, I really love this. But a lot of times I do these things because I want to. It's because I have a passion for it. I love it. But it also it's really cool to be able to see celebrities wearing it. Like, I think that's like an amazing perspective. And I share this, I'm one of those where I'm like, yeah, that's kind of cool, but I kind of want to be able to share it also because this is big. Like, this is huge. This one almost got me in trouble. And the reason I say that is because he wore it. He was one of my first celebrity followers when I started Deli Fresh Threads 11 years ago, when he did Man vs. Food. And I sent him this because he's a big Miami Dolphins fan. And when does he decide to wear it? On the NFL Network on Good Morning Football. I literally saw that. My Instagram and Twitter blew up, and I told my wife, I was like, well, we're about to get our first cease and desist, honey, because that's what's going to happen. So like, that's kind of one of those things where I was like, you got to be kidding me. This one over here, Carl Ruiz, if anyone's into Food Network, dude, that is my guy. He was Guy Fieri's like #1 guy, and he and I can't, for a good 4 years, that man was like, he DM'd me on my birthday, and he said, Biggie, I got happy birthday. He's like, he goes, you can't share this, but look. And he sent me, this is the picture from TV, but he sent me a picture behind the scenes, like, I'm wearing your shirt at Guy's Ranch, and we're gonna have it. And that guy used to wear my stuff all the time. Introduced me to so many people. Introduced me to obviously Justin Warner, Richard Blaze, the grill guys. I mean, I got so many people. It's like, it's really awesome. Just because the fact that they even know who the hell I am is just like insane. They're like, oh yeah, you're the sandwich shirt guy. I got to meet Jim Gaffigan. That one was kind of nuts. I met him on a cruise on my 40th birthday. He was performing on a Carnival cruise, which I was like, how the hell is Jim Gaffigan performing on a Carnival cruise? But I started DMing his wife. I DM'd him and his wife. Yeah, because you got to ask, okay? Like, I know the universe wants it, but you still got to hustle. I asked his wife and I said, dude, I was like, I love Jim. I'm like, I'm actually going to be there for my 40th. She freaking DMs me back and goes, oh my God, your shirts are awesome. And so then I was like, okay. And then he goes, hey, I'm like, when can I give it to him? And he goes, oh, he does like a VIP thing before the show. Don't worry, we got you on a list. And I had like 6 of my friends on this cruise with me. And when I showed up, he picked the shirt that he wanted. He wanted that one. Told me he was that size. I don't believe it, but whatever. And then when I went to see him, and we're in line, he looked at me, he goes, "You're the Deli guy." I was like, "Who, me?" And he's like, "Yeah." And it was cool because on the freaking paperwork, I could see it, and it said Friends of Jim. So my friends, of course, they thought it was like the coolest shit ever. They're like, "My God, we're friends of Jim." But it's kind of interesting, like some of these things, how it kind of happened and how it kind of has gone and progressed. This guy, if you don't know, he is the new host of Man vs. Food. He's also, this shirt, I collaborated with him. And it's something because he's from New Jersey. It's called pork roll. I don't call it pork roll. I'm from North Jersey. I call it Taylor ham, but he's a celebrity and I'm not. So therefore he won. And that's why it says Taylor ham for New Jersey, or tailor made for New Jersey. The last one is the important one because I told you about a book called Crush It. That's Gary Vaynerchuk. He basically he at least knows who I am, at least has worn my stuff. So it's kind of cool, right? It's cool to see these things. These are the little victories that you take and you're like, yay! But but then like sometimes that doesn't mean sales come from it. It just means like it's just a great opportunity from it. These are the ones that I do think that are awesome. Last year I got nominated by Scott Maxwell, which I will tell you for sure, I do not think I should be on this list, but I really am appreciative of it. I was one of 10 people who make Orlando a better place in 2023. And a lot of that was because of the fact, not just my brand, but because of my podcast, because of what I do, because of me trying to, I am a huge proponent of small business because I think small businesses are just it's so amazing to see someone. And even more so, I want to be your cheerleader if you're doing something totally different and no one else is doing, because I think it's just so difficult to do. I also got the opportunity to be on 2 shows. One of them is called Hit Me With Your Best Spot. The other one was called Blind Kitchen, where I was kind of like co-host, as well as also got to do do my thing with and be a guest judge. Ironically, my first event I ever did, she was the celebrity person at this food event. She's Emily Ellen, who's from Orlando, who ironically is also how it all kind of connects, best friends with a person who ran a market in DeLand that I happen to always sell at. So it's like you just never know who you're going to meet when you're doing these things and who you're going to influence or who's actually going to be sparked by you. You just don't know. You just have to be authentic and you have to be genuine and you got to basically go all out every time. So you got to weave your own thread. Like you literally have to go the route of thinking to yourself, what is it that I'm passionate about? What is it that I'm sitting on? What is it that I'm scared of? You scared to fail? Well, guess what? Like we're all going to fail. We're all going to go through it. I mean, look at Thomas over here in the corner. He is a proponent of that from Pig Floyd's and Pigza. He will tell you failure is, you have to fail, like, because that's how you learn. And I will say I've learned quite a bit along the way because I've had some duds of coming up with designs and ideas, but I've also have some moments where I know that I could probably be better. But at the same time, I want everyone to be able to your roadmap's going to look something like this sometimes, where you have no idea where it's going to lead and where it's going to go. But what you really have to do is just got to focus. That you have to just focus and say, I am on the right path. And I'm going to take and I'm going to learn from what I've got. And I'm going to continue moving forward to where I need to go. Because I'll be honest with you, I have no idea if Deli Fresh Shreds is my end game or if it's the start that's going to lead me to something bigger and better. But guess what? I'm down for it. That's the reason why I keep saying yes to opportunities and making things happen. So what is your thread? What are you going to start? What are you thinking about? And when are you going to start it? And when you do start it, I want you to DM me and tell me that you're actually doing it and why you did it and how can I help you do it. This is basically my social. I'll go back to it in a second, but I want to say thank you for your time and just letting me share my story.